In Jesus' name.
To go and serve the Lord. The Lord has called me. It takes one of us to leave this earth for me to recognize what God was saying to me. I have to go and do God's work. It's over. I'm done. I'm gone. The Lord has called me as his servant, and I have to listen to him this time and serve the Lord and do what he wants me to do. I am sorry if I disappoint any promoters. I have to go in the name of Jesus. Hallelujah. I accept, Lord. I accept, Lord. I am ready, Lord, because you are now ready. In the name of Jesus, Kayla, I have to go give that to the world. You send that out to the world. I have to go. Cancel all videos. Cancel everything. I have to go. There is no one like Jesus, and I have to go.
This is powerful. They follow a God. We can't do our conference because people are dying. So that means people are dying on God's watch. So, why should I believe in him? When is God going to save our people? See, I can't be believing in no crazy shit like that because they've been selling this to us for years. So, they made me atheist. Hebrew Israelites made me atheist. Christians made me an atheist. Muslims made me an atheist because they sold me on a half-truth. That's what they did. They sold me on a half-truth. And the more they perpetuate this half-truth, the more unconvincing the story becomes. So there's an all-knowing God who, for whatever reason, hasn't decided, after the 1,200 years from the trans-Saharan slave trade, after the 400 plus years of the European enslavement, near 2 millenniums, we had to undergo incapacitated, and still they believe in this God. And for some reason, they make excuses for why God suggests to us that we must endure during these hard times that they profess that we're living in to this day. Why do you or anyone else believe in God at this point? It's a lie. It's obviously a lie. Unless you're telling me someone who cared that much about my race doesn't think 1,600 years is enough of oppression. What, we got to do one more year? 10 more years? How much more years do we have to go with this all-knowing God who made us his chosen children of Israel, and all we have to do is believe in him or believe in Yahweh, or believe in Christ? How many more years do we got to believe in this nigga before we see some fucking results? See, that's why I'm an atheist. I have to be then. It's someone who doesn't believe in God or gods. You say anything outside of that, I want to see the definition so I can be clear to stand on it. But I have to be an atheist at this particular point because God has not delivered. And if I told you that you can come to my school, and when you come to my school, what's going to happen is you can get a degree. And when you get that degree, you can get a job. And now what happens when you make the sacrifice and you stay in a school system for 4 to 7 years? You get your degree, you got your certification, but the only thing you can do is get a job at Kinko's printing paper. Do you now believe in the school system after that? No. Would anybody get mad at you for saying that they didn't deliver? No. They would say, I understand, brother. They promised you something in exchange. You wanted that which they promised you in return. But actually, after all the years you invested into school, your time, your energy, and your money, after you invested your time, energy, and money, you got nothing in exchange. And now no one's going to get mad at you because they'll say, you know what? They didn't deliver. So how come we can't do that with God? When they tell me about God, the only thing they can deliver is speculation. They can deliver me a heaven, but I don't know. No one's coming back from heaven attesting to this shit. But hey, albeit for me to be a pessimist, show me something that God has given us in return for the belief in him. Show me. You can't show me 10 people who want to believe that God is down with them, because 10 years from now when they feel the religion is faulty, they'll be in another religion. So let's be for real. Show me an absolute where we know once I start believing in God, because the same Negroes getting at me saying polite don't believe in God, they are in different organizations, not the same organization. Why did they God do that? Well, how am I supposed to believe in God and the Negroes propagating knowledge about God can't even remain organized? How come they are in different factions trying to give you the impression that something good is going on, where if it was that good, they would be under the same umbrella. They would not be in different factions or different sects. If they was reading from a book other than the Bible, I wouldn't mind if they had different organizations. But if they're all reading the same book made by the man that made the sun, moon, and the stars, how can they impress upon my mind that I need to subscribe to that one God with the multiple factions? How does that make sense? All of them are actually atheists, if you ask me. They can't possibly believe in God, because if they believed in God, they would be in one order, on one accord. If they believed in God, they'd be in under one umbrella in one organization. All of them are atheists. If anybody is more spiritual, it's everybody else who has come to the conclusion that God doesn't exist, because a big part of spirituality is common sense. And once you lose common sense, you lose sense of spirituality.
Good night. This is the Cutting Edge, and I remember there with you next Wednesday. Yellow concrete asphalt for sitting for last week. Yeah, never get to hear him at all, but we know him always good. You're listening to Tipper Irie. We started out with Paul Elliott, 2 songs, same rhythm, 2 different lyrics for the same rhythm. Paul Elliott always good. You're listening to Tipper Irie. We started out with Paul Elliott, 2 songs, same rhythm, 2 different lyrics. A long time Tipper I read about, you know. Long time Tipper I read about. Most of the youth them I don't know Tipper I read about. A big DJ out of England. Just like Paul Elliott, a big singer out of Jamaica. But Paul Elliott don't need nobody to advertise him, you know. He know if he advertise himself, he think him easy. Why you love Paul Elliott? When it come and watch you and go back to Florida on the ship, a wonderful idea. I mean, I must see you love Damian Marley for really, I mean, it's like they are rebel salute for 5 days on the water. And it's like you know move, you know, but you know say you move, you know, but when you watch the show it come like you're on land. But when you look over you realize that appears you're on it, right? It's amazing. Like nearly 3,000 people they on the ship and appear reggae music. Reggae music, you know, they always them reggae music, they turn on TV or reggae music. You go watch a movie, it's a reggae movie. I mean, Stone Love after the concert, you have Stone Love till the morning, you have Bass Artist till the morning, Renaissance. I mean, Sky Juice. You know why you love Sky Juice? Sky Juice is the only man in Jamaica we use him belly as a brand. I tell you, Sky Juice, me don't want to tell Jamaica this. I don't want to tell Jamaica this, you know, but I'll tell Jamaica about when the Japanese sound system came again, Crown, what them name? Crown something. Anyway, the Japanese sound system. Them all, oh, you don't remember them name? You don't know the Crown?
Yeah, we know Mighty Crown.
Mighty Crown. And Metro Media and Bass Artist, them have a spin-off of the ship. Well, I tell you, say, anytime Sky Juice play a tune, you know, and nobody don't yell for that. When nobody, all who say Mighty Crown, you hear Ray. All who say Bass Artist, Ray. All who say Metro Media. The place sided like a church. when Sky Juice realized that him nah go on good with the selection, you know, Sky Juice take off him shot now. And it's him belly that I move up and down the place and that now make no difference. No difference. But the youth them will do, the Japanese youth them will do. The Japanese youth, them make I laugh till I laugh to right. Oh, them cuss bad one. It's, hey, when them cuss bad one, it's sweet, you know. Police can't lock up them youth, them cause bad. Because it don't sound like bad at all. Believe you me. But, me I tell you, it is nice. But, you depend on a ship and all them things they are going, and you know it's a ship you depend. And when you left that, after you left that, you know, like, you left that like 12:30 in the night, when that done, you go downstairs now, and you go a Renaissance. And Renaissance I play till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And you go in your room, and when you wake up in the morning, you hear a sound system I play outside. And then the show go on from 6 o'clock, stage show. The next brother will sweep me now is Elephant Man. Elephant Man. No, Elephant Man is a serious performer, you know. And I tell you, say, Elephant Man is an antics man, you know. And the second time now we bring Elephant Man on stage, you know, one with the Holland reggae, what them call that show, the Holland. Anyway, Elephant Man come on the scene like a pirate, you know. You saw him come out, he was a wet up pirate. When Elephant Man realized he can't throw the water upon the people, them, here Elephant Man now, who throw the water upon me? Everybody talk about the water and throw it and wet him up. No, it been nice. Elephant Man, me don't know. One thing with Elephant Man, you know, me don't know what I'm going to do when them reach all 55 or 60, you know. God, me know say them antics they can't go on. I roll off at the stage and I nearly broke his neck, you know. And I stand up on him foot now, I say, chum, if you don't stand up on him, you stand up on him. No, Elephant Man, trust me, man. Yeah. It's a lively thing. You have to really appreciate that part of the music, you know. Say, that part is not music. That's not music. Elephant Man don't have nothing to do with music. It might have something to do with just antics and entertainment, jump up and down by the stage, jumping at the audience, all sort of thing. It now put everybody on and wave your hand, this left, right, left, center, this and that. But yeah, me like Elephant Man. He's not nasty, but him reach the people them. Him not come on with no dirty nastiness and this and that. Him just entertain the people them. I like that. Him not bring no vulgarity. Him bring some kind of dance ethics in the music. I like that. Believe you me. Why you love Elephant Man? At the first dance I'll show me MC too, you know. Because I remember dance all night now, you know, with Bounty Killer and Popcorn and Elephant Man and how much the dancehall artist there. That was that dancehall artist night. Bounty Killer and my wife, what name again? Super Cat. Super Cat is that ex-bad man. I tell you. No, Rasta. You have some people that is Jamaican music industry, you know. Them no easy, you know, Rasta. Them not easy at all. Believe you me, the things of the man they go out with, you know. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. Oh, I love Super Cat, sleep with them good idea, New York, you know, but yeah, Super Cat. Believe you me, man. But Elephant Man make I laugh, man. Trust me, man. The man go out with some things by the stage like that. Anyway. Cutting Edge, IFM, we're there next Wednesday. We come forward in the middle of the whole of politics. Last time we there, I was telling you, them will start back the whole heap of shooting and killing and all them things for the politics. And we see full piece ahead now. Yes, JLP, PNP. Nobody can stop them again, you know. No, man, I mean, I don't want it to happen, but we know say it going to happen. So I don't true me say it why it going to happen. But a whole heap of people are going to lose their life before the elections start call. And not because of the election, because of politics. Because the people them it's like the two parties them have a hold upon them. It's like the two parties mesmerize them, have them under a spell. It's like the people them under a spell. That even though the thing now work for them, when it come on to this time, when you say election, it's like the GLP and the PNP go in a room and light some white candle and sprinkle some this and that and just say Jamaica this. They have a map of Jamaica and put 3 million on it and them just spread it and just how much million they on it get caught. 2 million, maybe 1 million no get caught. Me don't know. Me don't know, Rasta. Me look on the TV all the while and I say, what weird? Jamaican people who can't see. The people them can't see, so the thing now work for them, so them not forget eat it and hot-headed over these foolishness. Color, you know, PNP, GLP head, Bell, and it just go on and on and on and on, and these people on the TV, them a make them speech, and them a say it, and them a go on like say them not instigate the thing, and we see say them a instigate the thing, you know. Because all of them now say nothing to instigate the thing, you know. They know say them a instigate the thing. Because if you start to call out the next man, if you start to call and say the next man now do this for the people, them and now do that for the people, them, you know. The people them who they on your side, I go say, yeah, trim now do not for them, you know. You see them dirty labor right there. And them plywood come right there. And it's a problem. Because whenever you know I was talking about dirty labor right, you know. And then go apologize. You can't do things, no, just apologize and get out of it, you know. There's no consequence for anything that politicians do in Jamaica. They are not held accountable for their action. All them can do is say the dirty thing them and then come and apologize to the people them, and that's the final thing. If me and you do it now, it's a different thing. Them trump up something for you, lock you up, I sue you, I have to go pay millions of dollars to them. These people continue to insult the Jamaican peoples. Just insult Jamaican people. And then turn around and say, well, you know, and so them not apologize, you know. Come here, the youth, the vast, the other day, you know. Him apology at dead and night, me see him on the TV apologize, you know. The first thing when him do want an apology, you know. Because them all that say, well, if I have said something that it might have been miscued, it might have been misinterpreted. That's an apology, you know. It's like you tell the people them say, when me say I know what really mean, and you are take it or you are take it. So me never really say it, I'll put it or you want put it, and I apologize that. Him apologize the other night, no, on the TV the other night with Crosskill, at that time him apologize. But then now, how much of these things for the year, I have documented every apology that every politician do in a Jamaica since the year start. I have them on tape. I tell my brethren Neil, you know, say, me and them going to make a CD with music and put all of them people there. We call it the apologies. All of them will apologize for things what them do. And say, what them say. Everybody come and say something to the people them. From calling people drunk, them call them one people drunk, because Bunting I'm one people them call drunk, but upon the other side. And the other one I say trick them. No, we say him look like him going to left the PNP. When name Damian Crawford look like him going to left the PNP now. Because I can't do when me I read. I don't want him trouble Angela, you know. Watch it, you know, Damian. We exit out already, you know. You see, from we exit, Damian, there appear problem back. I don't want it. But I see him trouble Angela, you know. Him say, I probably don't go beyond the park name again. William Grand Park. You know, like, how them think they go down here? How them think they go, if there was Angela, I would tell him to clot. Because she has been known to say cloud for the Facebook thing there, and then apologize. I don't know why somebody should go up on Facebook and write bad word and then apologize for it. Me not apologize for no word when me say, unless it really defame somebody. And if me looking at it, I say, boy, defame me, I apologize. But me nah, go say one of those beautiful Jamaican words and apologize, you know. No, sir. And that them want me to do on the radio now, because when them call the broadcast commission say you must apologize and say it publicly to the people then. Eh? Any day by take me for this program, you guys say apology. Any day by take me, you guys say apology, but apology is the order of the day in Jamaica. Yes, apology is the order, especially for politicians. Politicians can say anything in Jamaica and get away with it without consequence. Anything that is derogative, that is, almost blasphemous to the people them, and get away with it. All them have to do is the next day come and say, boy, I'm sorry, say, well, no, I'm sorry, I apologize. Man go out in a church, you know. My boy there, not Golden, where the one name? Andrew Wallace, who built the hospital up at Jackson there. Him go in a church. All in a church, you know. You think them easy? Them no easy at all. Merry Christmas dinner. Christmas again and say happy holiday because them don't want to embarrass people who don't celebrate Christmas. You know, a whole heap of denominations in Jamaica like 70 and Jehovah's Witness and them people there. Rasta too, you know, celebrate Christmas. I was talking to a man on a TV program and what's his name again? Esputin or whatever his name. I'm say, but him ask me, who tell me, say, which part me get it from? Say, Jesus born on the 25th of December. Nobody never tell me that. I say, wow. Me hear from me born, say, Jesus born on the 25th of December, and this man come tell me, say, nobody never tell me that. I say, well, it's a Roman Catholic church, it's a deacon in the church. And apparently, it's Rome give it, you know, is that like Rome give it this idea of Christmas. As a matter of fact, most of the holidays, the days of the month, the days of the week, Rome give it. You know, it come from a Greco-Roman understanding of things. Whether astronomy or whether politically, which is like democracy, or whether them see it in the mythology that define them life. Them give way holidays. We never give it, it's just that now because we get colonized. I know the colonizer, the culture of the colonizer is always the dominant culture. That is how it's set. You know, if you were colonized by France, the culture of France in Guadeloupe and Martinique is more dominant. If it was colonized by the Spaniard, etc., colonized by the English, so the culture of the English. But Europe as a force, whether you get colonized in by France, or whether you get colonized by the Spaniards or the English, Rome, the Roman Catholic Church, was a dominant religious colonizer. So it gone across the borders. When Europe was Christendom, it gone across the borders of all the different countries in Europe, where you have things like mistletoe, Santa Claus, you know, and even though Santa Claus and mistletoe and a lot of these stories are national, when I say national now, we are talking about like, oh, you have Greece, and Greece in an ancient time give you things like Zeus and Zeus, the Zeus, God of all gods, and then you have other things. And then you have the Romans come with certain thinking like Sunday and Augustus. You know, we all know Augustus, the month from August. is Augustus and September, you know, but you have nationalistic names that is within the national boundaries of certain countries in Europe, but it transcends just the national boundaries, because whenever the church, which is the main influence, or which was the main influence in Europe, and the church decides, this is this, then the whole of Europe fall into it, or you were seen as heretic if you never follow the Roman Catholic. Because we have to separate now the Roman Catholic Church from Rome itself as a political entity. You have politics, Rome, because the Vatican City is almost like a country within a country. The Vatican City have its own laws. It's not under the laws of Rome or Italy. But the Vatican City is in Rome. But the Vatican City is run by the church. But there was a time when the church was more powerful than the state. Because Rome started out with a state-running thing, you know, like you have the old Roman Caesars, like Julius Caesar, Augustus Caesar, Septimus, and, you know, Caligula, all of them emperors, and then after the emperors, then you have now the popes. So the popes now, the pope under the Roman Catholic Church is what define the movement and the culture of the people in Europe. So the church now is going to decide now when the year start, when the year done, how much month in the year, how the name in the month them go. Jesus, because Jesus is a configuration. For those of you who don't know what configuration is, go look in your computer. Jesus is a configuration of many different aspects of mythologies. Our mythology define Jesus. So when them say the 25th of December is a Roman emperor who is gathering up the bishops of Rome, put them in a place and let them decide the character of this individual that the Christians call Jesus Christus, which is the Greek word, Jesus Christus. And it wasn't supposed to be the 25th of December. The 25th of December was drawn from the Roman idea of paganism. And when I talk about paganism as a bad thing, talk about people because them saw Judeo-Christian mindset. When them hear pagan, them look upon it as something horrible and terrible. It's like first time when you say dreadlocks or rasta, you know, it's like, wow, dreadlocks, what a terrible thing that. Well, the same paganism that people talk about. Paganism define a lot of what we now call Christian philosophy and ideas. And one of the main things that is drawn from paganism, and as Mr. Bernard talk about paganism now as an evil, cruel thing, but paganism as it relates to a group of people who was like farmers, poor farmers, who use the astrological signs of the earth and the sky to define themselves in a room. When them plant them food, them plant it according to the moon. When them do certain things, them do it according to the sun. When them do other things, them decide that them do it according to the seasons. So Rome have a group of people were separate from Christians. Because the Christian them come into Rome. The Christian them wasn't in Rome, them come into Rome. You see, and where them come from is from what I call the Middle East. But because Rome was the colonizer, Rome was like how America is today, or like how England was in a longer time, in the 50s, in the 40s and 50s, Rome was like England, the colonizers. Before Rome, it was Greece. So you have the Greco-Roman influence in Jerusalem, in the so-called Middle East. And all of the things them that influence what we see now as Christianity came out of that colonizers' understanding. So in like what they would call now Palestine, even though the Palestinians or the so-called Jews did have a certain way of practicing them culture based upon them old-time way. Them used to practice a certain cultural expression, and them used to view God in a certain way. But when the Romans them take over and devastate Jerusalem and become that colonizing force inside of Jerusalem, it was now the time for this, like them put underfoot the culture of the so-called Jews. And what was the rise on the top was the Roman culture, the Roman understanding of things. And because they were the superpower, them could have transport and transmit, because the people them and in Israel at the time, who they call themselves Jews, a lot of them couldn't read and write. All you hear them talk about Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. Nobody doesn't hear Matthew, Mark, Luke and John who write nothing. Because the Jews them at the time never understand nothing about writing according to Greco-Roman writing. So the first time them have the written papers, what them call now the New Testament, is Greek it writing now. It never writing in the language of the people them. In what them call is Jew, Israel. Is the Aramaic, the Aramaic language, Hebrew language, which was the main language of these people. It's not everybody could have it right. You have to go get an extreme education to go right. So when you hear them tell you say Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, nobody know name Matthew, Mark, Luke and John who write the New Testament. So when them transmit all of that in a Rome, and when this guy named Constantine now decides say him want to stabilize Rome, and because the Christian influence was getting so powerful in a Rome, and him realized him have to make a compromise between what was actually Roman culture and what was actually Christian ideas. So when he call up these people, his understanding was to, how can he now stabilize Rome with these two cultures and not create no problem? Because the other emperors them used to come and slaughter the Christian them, put them in the Colosseums them, where you see in a Rome there, was a place for death. Where them call lion eat them and them have all sorts of games and all everything there. So these people now come and them say, all right, the 25th of December, we have to find a day that represent the so-called Christian idea of this man, but yet still not doing away with the pagan idea of the understanding of how things run in the celestial world, in the astrological and astronomy and astrology. Them never want to do away with that. So what he must be able to do is to fuse a mythology of a man with the approach of the pagans in a Rome, with the celestials, the stars, the planets and all these things, and them come to an understanding that this idea represents 25th of December going to now be declared the birth of the man who the Christians call Jesus, but it was also the Yuletide season in the pagan tradition. The Yuletide season in the pagan tradition was what the Romans now decide for the Christians, that this is now going to be called the birthday of this man that the Jews them hold on upon, that them call Jesus Christ. So the fusing of that, the ideas develop, that other things now start to collide with it. So other nations in Europe now, because Rome, as we say, and the Pope, after Constantine go down, the emperor still have emperors, but the Pope was the deciding factor in all of these things. And what the Pope say, being the so-called vicar of Christ, him could make certain statement, and that statement was seen as the God representation. In other words, God could have touched him and him transmit. I notice the youth inside us, where the youth inside us over the name of the DJ youth, where them that interview a while ago. Tonto Black say God touch him. You never hear say that? And what's your name, Lady Star, say God touch her. The only person God not touch her, the Prime Minister. We need God to touch the Prime Minister quick, because God has touched all them people that we are DJ and all them things that have changed their life. And the Prime Minister, right, not a DJ. Maybe the Prime Minister need for DJ. Yeah, and then God will touch her. But coming back to the story, is that the church under the Pope, the Roman Catholic Church, because we must understand what Roman Catholic mean, and most people don't know, that Catholic means universal. The word Catholic means universal. So you put Catholic with Rome, Roman Catholic is a universal Catholic. The church is universal. Roman Catholic, the church, the Roman church is a universal church. And anybody who is a Roman Catholic is under the auspices of the Pope of Rome. The Pope is a perfect, you see them tell our lies that Peter, the man who used to follow Jesus, was the first Pope. And them kill him and put him under St. Peter's Basilica. That's why them call it St. Peter's, because him supposed to bury under there. Peter and Paul. Come back, Peter, come back, Paul. Fly away, Peter, fly away, Paul. Anyway. Now them have a 25th of December. And the Christians claim, because them was, and I would say brainwashed, but because of the colonial experience of Rome, and because of the influence of the Roman Catholic Church, the people them under that colonialism automatically adopt the idea of the 25th of December. Automatically. The people them under. So anywhere in Europe you're there, because the church, not Rome, not Italy, but the church, the Roman Catholic Church is a separated apart from the Italian thing, separated apart from Rome. But the Vatican City is the smallest city in the world, but it's one of the richest cities in the world. And it shows more influence in the world than any other little country in the world. The Vatican City under the Pope. So the Pope now is the one now that is going to make people recognize that the 25th of December, as set out by the traditions of Rome, is going to be celebrated as the Christian idea of the birth of Jesus Christ. So we must remember that Jesus Christ, the name Jesus Christ, was not in history. The word Jesus Christ just come up the other day. You see, we have to understand them things too, that the man who the so-called Jews them was following in Israel. He never named Jesus Christ. The name Jesus Christ is the English form of a Greek name, Jesus Christos. And if you follow the word itself, you realize that Jesus Christos don't have no historical reference point beyond 3,000 years ago. Beyond, sorry, how much were we there? 2,000 years ago. It never reached 1,500 years ago. It never reached 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, you never have no name, Jesus Christ, in a no language. No name. In a no language, you didn't have a name Jesus Christ. But because we are colonized by the Roman Catholic Church, whether your denomination is Jehovah's Witness, who is totally get the biggest fight from Christian people, whether you're Seventh-day who don't celebrate these things, whether you're Protestant who just break away from the Roman Catholic, we still get influenced by the church, the Roman Catholic Church. So the Roman Catholic Church is that church now that is going to now decide how you celebrate Christmas. And all the other days them that link with this man named Jesus, with them called Jesus. So all the holidays, all the celebration that people who call themselves Christians, all of these holidays was decided by the colonial master, not under the state but under the church, by the Roman Catholic Church. It is the Roman Catholic Church that gives us the 25th of December as the birthday of Jesus. It is the Roman Catholic Church that gives us Easter. It's the Roman Catholic, you name it. You name all the things them that related to this man, what them call Jesus. It is the Roman Catholic Church that decides that we're going to call him Jesus Christ too. The church and most of the concepts that we hold fast to, and we really believe what we are saying, especially black people. Black people believe what they must say more than whether a fancy or another race that talk about Christianity, We hold on upon it like it's where life depends upon it. It's very difficult to talk to a Christian. Well, I should say some Christian, because 70 of them and the Jehovah's Witnesses them not believe certain things. And the 70 of them feel them draw away from Rome more than most denominations. If you check out the 70 of them behave, it's like the 70 of them actually say the Pope is the mother of all that is Babylon, is the devil incarnate, all of these things, the mark of the beast. The first time I know about this translation of the mark of the beast, it's 70 I get it from. It's 70 of them. I read book by Ellen G. White and Revelation and Daniel and them book there. And them book there, when you look on it and Daniel, and them book there. And them book there, when you look on it, they must show you, say, yeah, the mark of the beast. Yet still, in at the time when Nero, there was an emperor named Emperor Nero, where most people will tell you, say, the 666 is related to Emperor Nero. So the idea of the 666 is through the breakaway from Rome by the Protestant church and everything there. And a brother named Martin Luther, a German guy named, not Martin Luther King, Martin Luther the German. In breakaway, you have them named there, Henry VIII breakaway from the church. And this is how the 666 thing now are related to the Pope, because everybody had tried to search for the mark of the beast. And because the animosity started to develop against the Pope of Rome, a lot of the leaders for churches who break away from Rome start to twist the Revelation story to the Pope and to the emperors. To the Pope, But before the Pope, them did have that main power. The Emperor Nero was seen as this beast that would rise up. You find, say, African spirituality. If you bring African spirituality to a Christian, hardcore Christian, them don't want to hear about that. Because it's one thing them I work with is Jesus. And if you start to show them, say, but how you get Jesus? It's because the colonial master, the church, not the political colonial master, England, but the colonial master, Roman Catholic Church, gave you that idea and that understanding that every time you interpret the Bible, you are interpreting the Bible to fit. It's like you cut off your foot to fit the shoes. Because most of the things them where the Christian them relate to the so-called Old Testament, which is really a derogative thing to call it Old Testament, because it's really the Torah, the Pentateuch, that the so-called Jew them use. Because the Jew them stop for them thing of Malachi. Where the Christian them do is use everything, but the only reason why them use everything is because them can't cut off them foot to fit the shoes. In other words, them can draw from the Torah and pick up things in the so-called New Testament. And what is said in the New Testament, them can configure it out of the Old Testament to suit something where them hear somebody say in the New Testament. So most of the church, most of the Christians them, they will follow the Old Testament only to the point where the New Testament make mention of things in the Old Testament. Because when you talk about all the laws and all these things of the Old Testament, you know, them come tell you, say, this man when named Jesus, done with that. Him come now as the living testimony. You know, see, circumcision is not one of the flesh, but one of the heart, even though circumcision was a main cultural practice amongst the Jews, them. So these guys will come now with the so-called New Testament, configure the Old Testament, what them call Old Testament, to suit the New Testament. That's the only reason why Christians use the Old Testament, you know. The Old Testament have no significance to Christians. The only reason why it has significance is because them can draw something there that tell you, see there, this is that talk about Jesus, you know, see there in this Emmanuel and all these things, and this and that, so them can draw from that. But as far as the cultural practices of the Jews were in the Old Testament, Matthew, Mark, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, as far as those practices is concerned, a lot of those things is made null and void by Christian practitioners. Them don't want to hear about, you know, if a man lie with the next man. You know what I mean? Christians still hold on to that, you know, but the only reason why them hold on to that is because of a cultural thing. Not because of a spiritual thing, you know. It's because of a cultural thing why them don't accept that. So, here we are now in a dilemma. The dilemma is that the people them who give you this 25th of December is moving away from what they originally told you about the 25th of December. Just like how them tell you, say, we are going to outlaw, where the boy named Henry VIII outlaw, Henry VIII make homosexuality a death sentence in England. It was Henry VIII that legislated that. The same Henry VIII was shift from Roman Catholicism to Anglican and set up Anglican thing. It make homosexuality a death sentence. Now here come England in this modern time and I say, no, you can't kill a man because of his sexual orientation. The slaves who was given that idea about a death sentence and was shown passages of the book, that says if a man lie with a man, other things too, but we mentioned this part of it because this is one of the most pressing part when it comes on to certain things. We confront Christian people and people who is embedded in certain things. The idea of a man laying with a man must be placed to death. We have that, even though we say we are Christian, not we, but even though the Jamaican people say they are Christian, them still hold on upon that. Now, them colonial masters, I say, look here, we have changed that right now, you know. We have changed that. But the slaves, them will have no say into that because really and truly, that never in our culture, even before we did read that in the Bible. Even before black people read that in the Bible, we never have that in our culture. We never have it in our culture. So we come adapt something that we were totally against. That is why it's so difficult for we go let go of this accept this homosexual thing. Because that never in our culture. And moreover, now we come here and say, in the Bible say, if a man there with the next man, he must put to death. And the white people, them instigate that, legislate that. Henry VIII legislate death sentence for homosexuality. But guess what now? Them switch now. Them have said, no, it's archaic, barbarous business. Now you have people now who liberal will say, well, me not agree for a man dead for homosexuality, but me still not agree with it. That is when I find back him consciousness, you know. Him I find back him consciousness, him I say, me not go really say people for dead because him here. But we are going to say now, we still not agree with it. When the slave master now tell you, say, look here now, you better agree with what we are saying now, or else you are going to draw back certain things from me, and we are going to ostracize you upon certain little levels. So we see where culture versus religious practice and religious belief versus the colonizers thinking, and the colonizers is now deciding what we must think, or was deciding and it's still deciding what we must think. So it's very difficult, very, very difficult for a Christian to listen to me and really accept what I say. That way him think not have nothing to do with his reality, but it's somebody else's reality, because he might define himself through European reality, and he might use European logic to come to a conclusion about something where him think is reality. Very difficult to agree, because I'm going to tell you about the blood of Jesus, they don't know how this blood of Jesus come, how blood associate with Jesus, how blood sacrifice. Blood sacrifice is something where it exists thousands of years before the idea of Jesus. That evil man in the Bible named Abraham was going to offer up a blood sacrifice. And then him change from his son and him grab a poor little sheep lamb and kill the lamb and offer up the blood sacrifice. And even in a Genesis 8 it tells you, say, God loved the scent of dead animal. And it was Noah was ordered to get, them always tell you must get the best, your best animal, your most, the fattest animal, and offer it up as a sacrifice unto the Lord. Because the Lord loved the scent of dead flesh. These are things that is in the Bible. So the blood thing, if you go in a most traditions, what them call primitive traditions, the idea of blood sacrifice is a part of them culture. And it was no different in the Jewish tradition. What the Christians do now is move it from a physical ritual to what them call now a metaphysical ritual. But them still hold on upon it because the Roman Catholic Church still hold on upon the physical perspective of the blood and the flesh. Because we say time and time again that when you go to the Roman Catholic Church and you take communion, that thing that them put in your mouth, name the Eucharist that them put in your mouth, and them say you mustn't chew it, just hold it by your tongue and it melts in your tongue. And then the father drink the wine. The Roman Catholic Church says, and I say it time and time again, ask any Roman Catholic priest that if we're muta say, if it's lie I tell. The Roman Catholic Church argue that the Eucharist and the wine, when you eat and drink that, it becomes literally, not metaphorically, not mystically, but it becomes the literal blood and flesh of Jesus Christ. I know somebody was like, we muta say, yes. If you don't believe what I say, go ask a Roman Catholic priest. Go ask. I can't remember the big priest. That talk about environment and all them things there. Go ask one of them. Go ask one of them big priests. If the Roman Catholic Church not tell you say, anytime you drink the wine, it literally, in other words, when it go down in your stomach, it's the blood of Jesus going down in your stomach. And when you take the Eucharist, it's the flesh of Jesus going down in your stomach. It's a whole heap of flesh and blood. It's a whole heap of flesh and blood that people are eat. So these are the concepts that this church have. And when you look at the practices of black people, we are talking about black people now, because more and more people are moved away from this Roman Catholicism. More and more people. As a matter of fact, more and more people are moved away from religion, especially Christianity. Because them say now that the most prosperous countries in Europe and in the world actually is void of religious Christian beliefs. That most countries that still hold on and maintain these archaic thinking is very poor countries. It's countries that the majority of the people them is in poverty, and them life expectancy is real terrible. So this is the time when we know, even though we say we not deal with Rome, and we not deal with Roman Catholicism, but this is the time when now them trick you now, them trick you in back into it now. This is the time of the year when everybody get tripped into it, that you have to know have a conditioning to deal with this thing. You have to have certain things, because this is one of the most important holidays in the Christian calendar, and Easter, most important, and let them give Ash Wednesday. All of them things there is Roman. All of them things there. All of those things is Roman. Ash Wednesday, Easter, Good Friday. I mean, you name it, all of them related to the Roman Catholic Church. Now, I don't know if you know this, but did you know that there was a time when Christmas was banned in America? Christmas was once banned in America. Yes, that's a serious story. Serious story.
It has been called the Day of Days. It is a time of magic, pageantry, warmth, generosity, and love. For many of us, our fondest childhood memories revolve around the traditions of Christmas. It is a time that many around the world celebrate as the birth of Jesus Christ, the Savior and Messiah of mankind. In recent years, however, the spiritual holiday has become a time of mass marketing and crass commercialism. Incredibly, many businesses derive more than half their yearly income during this period. The process of gift-giving, once thought to have come from the story of the wise men who offered gifts to the newborn Christ, has evolved into the buying frenzy we see today during the month of December. But what about the other Christmas traditions? Have you ever wondered why we decorate the Christmas tree? Why we light the Yule log? Why we hang the mistletoe? And why we teach our children to believe in Santa Claus?
In the next hour, you will discover the true origins of Christmas. You may be surprised or even shocked to learn the source of your favorite holiday traditions. Chances are, you'll never look at Christmas the same ever again.
Hemisphere during late December, the days are at their shortest length and the nights are at their longest. For those of the pagan world, this has always been the greatest time of the year to celebrate and practice the works of darkness. The pagan calendar identifies this period as the winter solstice. It was during the pre-Christian midwinter pagan celebrations of Scandinavia's Norsemen where today's Christmas traditions began. As a means of honoring the pagan sex and fertility god Yule, a 12-day celebration during the month of December was inaugurated. A large single log considered to be a phallic idol was lit on fire and kept burning for 12 days. Animal or human sacrifices were offered in the fire on each of those days. Wild, delirious reveling accompanied the daily sacrifices as drunken participants defiantly strove to make contact with spirits. 1,000 miles away in pre-Christian Rome, celebrants were paying homage to their own gods during the winter solstice. Witchcraft traditions hold that a number of pagan gods were given birth during this period, including Dionysus, Attis, and Baal, chief male god of fertility and licentiousness. Another pagan god from Persia, identified as Mithra, was said to have been born specifically on December 25th. Mithra was the god of the unconquerable sun, the god of the light between heaven and earth, worshipped at that time by an influential Roman cult. His birth symbolized an end to the long nights and a return to the dominance of the sun. During the month-long winter solstice celebration, courts in Rome were closed. Any and all crimes were allowed. Homosexuality, cross-dressing, and uncontrolled debauchery reigned supreme. Rome's order was turned upside down. Even children were allowed to join in the drunken orgies as part of the Juvenalia celebration. By 270 AD, the Roman Emperor Aurelian had made it official, setting aside a 7-day period from December the 17th through the 24th, culminating in an exchange of gifts on December the 25th to celebrate the birth of the sun god. This Roman orgy to end all orgies later became known as Saturnalia, in honor of the god Saturn, the god of excess. Roman soldiers invading Britain brought with them their pagan orgiastic traditions. Upon taking root in England, Saturnalia became known as the Festival of Fools, reigned over by the Lord of Misrule. By the 4th century, the influential government-sanctioned Church of Rome, unable to outlaw the growing number of pagan practices, chose instead to adopt them into their so-called official Christianity. The Church believed this would attract more pagans to their fold.
Up until this time, the birthday of Jesus Christ, the Jewish Messiah, had not been celebrated at all. Ignoring scriptures, however, indicating that the birth probably did not occur during the winter, the Church nevertheless confused biblical history and made Jesus' birthday coincide with the pagan god Mithra. The birth date of the sun god had now become the birth date of the Son of God.
It was hoped that the pagan celebrations of Saturnalia would merge into this new legally sanctioned form of Christianity. The Church's practice of changing the dates of Christian events to coincide with pagan festivals continued, and by the 7th century, Pope Gregory I had ordered Augustine of Canterbury to incorporate any and all pagan practices and customs into the expanding Roman Catholic Church. During the Middle Ages, the debased Mardi Gras atmosphere of what was now known as Christ's Mass had reached a fevered pitch. Common practices included open sex in the streets, rioting, murder, and a number of pagan druidic Halloween rituals. This blood-drenched celebration got so out of hand that by 1652, following the execution of King Charles I, Christ's Mass was finally outlawed in England. A religious reform movement began sweeping the country, led by Puritan Oliver Cromwell. The Puritans took the biblical mandate seriously, which commanded that Christianity remain pure and separate from paganism. Despite their noble efforts, the celebration simply went underground, and by 1656, after only 4 short years under the ban, the public's demand for the legalization of Christ's Mass had become insurmountable. The appointment of Charles II to the throne restored England's monarchy, and with it the celebration of Christ's Mass. The Puritans had lost England, but they held high hopes for the new world.
When the first settlers came from England, they were, for the most part, Puritans. They came here for religious freedom. They came here to be free to worship God without a hierarchy and without the corruption of the organized church that they had known before. And when they came with the clear knowledge of the danger of these pagan practices that had become so dear to the hearts of their ancestors.
Following England's lead in 1659, the colonies of America had likewise outlawed Christmas. For 200 years, the clergy in New England battled to keep the riotous celebrations honoring the pagan god Saturn from infiltrating the New World. The Reverend Cotton Mather had warned in a Christmas Day sermon in 1712, "Can you, in your conscience, think that your Holy Savior is honored by hard drinking, lewd reveling, and by a mass fit for none but Bacchus or Saturn?" But the public's taste for sin and revelry persisted. In 1828, gang rioting during the Saturnalia-like Christmas celebrations got so bad that cities such as New York were forced to institute a professional police force for the first time in order to control the savagery.
Christmas was not only not widely celebrated. In many cases, many places, Christmas celebrations were actually outlawed. And this was because of the attitude of many of the churches who regarded it as primarily as a pagan celebration and as a reproach to the Lord.
By the mid-19th century, American churches were the last remaining holdout in the war against the validation of Christmas.
Yeah, this is the Cutting Edge on RFM. We continue the history class.
Holdout in the war against the validation of Christmas. However, they too finally succumbed as a result of the efforts of the American Sunday School Society, who began advocating Christmas programs for children as a method of filling the pews. The society argued that children could be taught about the birth of Christ through the reenactment of the Nativity. They also offered candy and treats to the children as a means of enticing families into accepting the holiday, despite its notorious history and blatantly pagan roots. The successful technique of bribing children with candy would later be used on an unsuspecting American populace in the effort to promote the acceptance of the pagan rituals of Halloween. However, it was the work of England's most popular writer, Charles Dickens, whose ghostly 1843 book, A Christmas Carol, cemented the Christmas holiday in the hearts of Americans forever. Dickens' well-loved story made the pagan Christmas feasts, shining trees, glittering shops, and family warmth irresistible to those wanting to experience the holiday. Coming to America in 1867 to promote his work, Charles Dickens packed theaters as he read his story to cheering audiences around the country. A Christmas Carol gripped America and destroyed any final attempt to stop the evolution of Christmas. By 1875, the Puritans had been beaten, and by 1890, all American states had voted to make Christmas a legal holiday. Today's tradition of the Christmas Yule log stems directly from the worship of the pre-Christian Scandinavian fertility god Yule. The burning of this phallic idol is also responsible for the concept of the 12 days of Christmas, which represented the 12 daily sacrifices offered up in the Yule log's flames.
Another good example of the pagan elements of Christmas is the whole concept of Yule and the Yule log. The very term is derived from the Norse god Yule, spelled J-U-L. And every year around Christmas time, a huge log was cut down and fashioned into a fertility symbol and then burned for 12 days. And on each successive day, a new sacrifice to the god Yule was performed in the fire, and a new sacrificial victim was burned to death. Sometimes, but not always, these sacrificial victims were human beings. And the whole notion of the 12 days of Christmas also comes to us from this Norse pagan tradition.
In an attempt to blur the origins of this horrific ritual, the Church of Rome placed the first day of the Mass of Christ on December 25th and the 12th day on January the 6th. Despite no scriptural references for January the 6th, it was selected as the day the wise men supposedly arrived to offer gifts to the newborn Christ. This day, then, has become known as Epiphany.
During the Dark Ages, the European custom of putting an oil-lighted wick lamp in the windows during the 12 days of Christmas signified to neighbors that the occupants were participating in the pagan worship of the phallic idol Yule. In today's commercialism, this is where we get the tradition of decorating our houses with Christmas lights. The Yule log custom was originally brought over to America by Scandinavian immigrants during the 1600s. And despite attempts to ban the tradition, it has stayed with us to this very day. Today, when we wish someone Yuletide greetings, we are in a sense invoking the power of the fertility god Yule upon that person. Saturnalia celebrations, holly and other greens were hung over doorways as part of a pagan ritual to ward off evil. To deck the halls with boughs of holly was to acknowledge the powers of the nature gods. According to Wiccan rituals, placing holly or other greens in the shape of a circle or wreath accentuated its magical power. Similarly, mistletoe, when used in the casting of Wiccan or Druidic spells, could render a woman helpless and open to sexual exploitation. This is where we get our custom of hanging mistletoe in doorways today, and if a woman is caught underneath, she may be kissed and must not resist.
The fir tree, the mistletoe, all of these things typically come from overtly pagan traditions, typically from Northern Europe, German, Norse, and English.
Likewise, evergreen trees have always represented sex and fertility in pagan cultures. During the winter solstice, trees would be chopped down, brought inside, set up, and decorated as idols for worship.
The Christmas tree was regarded as a sacred tree. The pagans of Northern Europe typically worshipped trees. They regarded trees and groves as sacred. So the bringing of the tree into the house would be a way of bringing this supernatural source of blessing into your home. That was the whole idea, that there were spirits who resided in the trees.
In the Middle Ages, the tradition of the winter solstice Christmas tree primarily took root in Germany. During his reign, King George I, himself of German extraction, brought the custom to Victorian England. German immigrants settling in Pennsylvania did the same in America during the early 1800s. In 1848, the London Illustrated News published this famous engraving depicting Queen Victoria and her royal family beside a decorated Christmas tree. And within a few years, nearly every English household had their own tree in allegiance to the monarchy. By 1900, the U.S. Forest Service estimated that at least 1 in 5 homes in America had adopted the Christmas tree tradition. Thousands of years earlier, God, speaking through the prophet Jeremiah, warned against this pagan practice in the Old Testament. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the ways of the heathen, for the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, they deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and hammers that it move not. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good.
Santa Claus is another good example of a pagan element of Christmas. Santa Claus, as we know him today, is an amalgamation of several different traditions, but in most cultures throughout the world, you will find the existence of what is known as hearth gods, gods who guard the hearth and the chimney and keep the fires burning and make sure the food cooks properly and the people are warm and what have you. And at a certain time of year, in the middle of winter, typically, the hearth god dressed in red will come down the chimney to reward those who have pleased him during the course of the previous year and to lay curses or hexes or other forms of punishment upon people who have displeased him.
The concept of Santa Claus has had a long and winding history with a number of diverse cultures contributing to the composite character we have today. Beginning once again in Scandinavia, Santa's original incarnation was in the form of Odin, the pagan god of thunder, a tall fellow with a long flowing beard who inhabited the spirit-infested Nordic forests. Odin would travel the sky during the winter solstice, deciding who would die and who would prosper. Most believers were frightened of this particular time of year. In England, Odin eventually evolved into Father Christmas, who, crowned with sprigs of holly, travels the countryside getting roaring drunk as part of the Festival of Fools celebration. Frequently, he would be accompanied by a horned goat, ironically the biblical symbol of those who reject the salvation of Jesus Christ. According to the traditions of the Church of Rome, there was a Turkish bishop named Nicholas who hailed from Myra in Asia Minor during the 4th century. He was known as the patron saint of seafaring men. Over the centuries, as the legend began to unfold, it was rumored that St. Nicholas had actually captured the devil himself, put him in chains, and made him his personal servant. Recognized in various cultures as Krampus, Beelzebub, or Zwart Piet, Black Peter, this assistant of St. Nicholas is best known by his German name, Knecht Ruprecht. Described as a hideous horned creature, the servant Ruprecht was a dark and sinister figure who stood in stark contrast to the saintly Nicholas. Somehow, Father Christmas's companion, the horned goat, had metamorphosized into the foreboding horned devil called Ruprecht. As St. Nicholas traveled from house to house, inquiring about the behavior of children, Ruprecht would drop candy and gifts down the chimney into the good children's shoes which had been placed there. It was from this story that we get our tradition of hanging stockings on the mantle at Christmas time. If able to recite a verse or demonstrate a skill for St. Nicholas, the child would receive a gift. If unable to remember a verse, or if the child had been bad, he or she would receive a switch or a whip. Ruprecht also carried a large sack which he would frequently use to haul away the really bad boys and girls.
As more and more Christian churches began combining the pagan rituals of the winter solstice with the celebration of the birth of Christ, emphasis on St. Nicholas's role began to shift. Some cultures began to downplay the role of St. Nicholas, but surprisingly retained Ruprecht.
Eventually, Knecht Ruprecht was made the companion and servant to the Christ child himself. In this scenario, the devil is actually given the title Weihnachtsmann, or Santa Claus. 19th century writer Theodor Storm, in his story about Knecht Ruprecht, even goes so far as to describe the switches given to the children by Ruprecht as tools to be used in sadomasochistic rituals. Soon, the image of Ruprecht would fade from the Christmas tradition, but not his sadistic influence. Many of the early depictions of Santa Claus portrayed him not as a jolly gift giver, but of an unfriendly disciplinarian complete with a ready switch or whip.
One of the problems with the Christmas gift thing for children is that it really is a religious teaching, a wrong religious teaching, because it teaches them that if they're nice, they get the gifts. If they're naughty, they don't. Or in my case, I was taught that he would leave us a bundle of switches. Isn't that interesting? It's a salvation by my own personal virtue. But there's a second thing wrong with it, and that is that they're going to get those gifts whether they're naughty or nice, because most parents love their children and wouldn't dream of, quote, ruining their Christmas. And they're not going to ruin Christmas. They're going to give those children the gifts anyway. And sooner or later, those thinking children are going to realize, I wasn't very nice, but I got the gift anyway. So it isn't important to be nice. It isn't important to do what is right and avoid what is wrong.
German immigrants coming to America during the 1620s tried to influence the New World with the stories of St. Nicholas and his gift-giving companion, Knecht Ruprecht. But somehow the idea just didn't take hold until almost 200 years later.
In 1819, America's best-selling author, Washington Irving, used his influence to promote St. Nicholas in a popular Christmas story titled Brace Bridge Hall. Consulting Irving's writings, Episcopalian minister Clement Clark Moore penned a decidedly secular tale called A Visit from St. Nicholas in 1822. Later retitled The Night Before Christmas, Moore's poem was based on the tales of German and Dutch immigrants who had come to America. Intended originally only for his own children, Moore's story was published in the Troy Sentinel in New York and became an overnight sensation. Gone were the bishop's remnant of St. Nicholas. He was now a jolly old elf imbued with supernatural powers. Moore had also replaced Nicholas's companion, the horned, became increasingly concerned that the story's emphasis on the supernatural and its disregard for Christ would reflect poorly on his position as a minister. As a result, he refused to take credit for its creation until the story became so popular that he could no longer resist. 40 years later, illustrator Thomas Nast, political cartoonist for Harper's Weekly, seared the image of Santa Claus into the minds of the world by creating a drawing which combined Moore's jolly old elf with images of St. Nicholas taken from his own native Bavaria. By 1880, Santa was a thoroughly secularized folk hero who had become increasingly irresistible to retailers worldwide.
One factor that has contributed to the paganization of Christmas, the complete paganization of Christmas, has been the element of commercialism. It may seem odd to think of it in that. Remember that Christ himself identified the love of money as a spiritual force in and of itself. And where it comes into play, it has a kind of naturally hostile effect on the gospel and the Christian faith. So the commercialization of Christmas has helped to highlight the pagan elements and to drive the overtly Christian elements further underground.
To me, the most obscene thing about Christmas celebrations and customs as we know them is that as a result of these things, Jesus is displaced in the hearts of children by Santa Claus. The love, affection, appreciation, trust, the desire to emulate, these things that they...
I tell you, serious reasoning. This is the Cutting Edge on RFM. The time is 12 o'clock.
Brothers and sisters, this is Charlie. Join us with respect for our national anthem. And defend this one. Peace and love. Thank you. Eternal Father, bless our land. Guide us with thy mighty hand. Keep us free from evil powers. Do our life through countless hours. To our leaders, great defenders, breakthrough wisdom from us. justice.
Justice. Truth.
The earth forever.
Jamaica, land we love. Jamaica, 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 land we
For the 12 days of Christmas, Hilo gave to me 12 great deals and giveaways on my favorite brands and many shopping sprees. It's Hilo's 12 days of Christmas, December 11 to 22. So get your shopping carts ready for great deals on Pepsi, Lasco, Wisynco, World Brands, Massey, Stacy, Ramson, Hilo, and Grace products. It's the season to shop at Hilo, making life easier, especially at Christmas.
This is not just a show, this is an event. Chronix Music Group presents Captureland Jamaica Tour Part 2. Mutabaruka Rafting Village, December 20th, 2015. Gates open 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. Free sold 1,800, gate 2,000. Sponsored by IRFM and Jamaica Observer. Falmouth. This is the Captureland Tour. Yeah, no association with nobody.
Here we go.
You know it's all about one of Nigeria's most talked about party this Christmas season. It's all about Smirnoff Stoplights Affair. Saturday, December 19th at Mega Vibes Entertainment Lounge. Red, you're taken. Yellow, flirt with caution. Green, single and ready to mingle at Mega Vibes Entertainment Lounge. Music by Black Blood, Maki and Gemini, DJ Smoke, Force Rap and Mega Squad. Admission $500. Drink responsibly. Drink right. You gotta be 18 and over to drink. ID required. December 19th, Smirnoff Stoplights Affair. Mega Vibes Entertainment Lounge, number Road Degree. It's the 15th staging of Boom G.T. Taylor Christmas Extravaganza. December. Black River St. Elizabeth. Come witness 360 degrees of reggae and dancehall featuring Sizzler, Pound Tequila, Beanie Man, Popcorn, Zaga, Anthony Cruz, Mike Killer, King Booth, E. Kamau, Charlie Black, Villa Dutch, DJ. Admission $2,500, VIP $5,000. Boom, G.D. Taylor's Christmas Extravaganza 2015. The ultimate Christmas show.
Get there. Benjamin, Milton, Kingston, Sablamar, and Lucy. Look out for the big player. Border Patrol with Andrea Del Cesar Wright. A big deal, a big excitement. Border Patrol just mash up Canada. Border Patrol hits Moran Bay Boxing Day. Then Milton, Sunday, December 27th. Why, Kingston, it's New Year's Day at Stephanie Hall. Holy Childhood, hello, Sablamar, is January 2 and Lucy January 3. Yo, Border Patrol, call 399-8081.
Leaders Award, Friday, December 18th at Good Times Lawn, Claremont, Virginia. Live performances by Chapman John and IQ and many more. Music by Bass Out of State. Admission $200.
So far, sleeping in the gutter, two sides of the bread, all the crust is butter.
It's the Unique Star Talent Search Grand Final and After Party Jam. You don't know it's your girl Maggie Diamond will be there live. Hosted by Blacker, Club Amnesia, Ochereers. December the 18th, this Friday of love. You don't know the winner will get a $250,000 recording contract. So guess what now? The girl with a clean weave will come out. This Friday, December the 18th, 8 p.m. sharp.
It's the season to be Irish, tra la 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 la. Wake up, call, we're happy and merry, tra la 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 la. Well, fa la 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 la, back away to my knees. The wake up call rolls out Monday, December 21, and we did
The solstice, with the celebration of the birth of Christ, emphasis on St. Nicholas's role began to shift. Some cultures began to downplay the role of St. Nicholas, but surprisingly retained Ruprecht. Eventually, Knecht Ruprecht was made the companion and servant to the Christ child himself. In this scenario, the devil is actually given the title Weihnachtsmann, or Santa Claus. 19th century writer Theodore Storm, in his story about Knecht Ruprecht, even goes so far as to describe the switches given to the children by Ruprecht as tools to be used in sadomasochistic rituals.
Soon, the image of Ruprecht would fade from the Christmas tradition, but not his sadistic influence. Many of the early depictions of Santa Claus portrayed him not as a jolly gift giver, but of an unfriendly discipline.
One of the problems with the Christmas gift thing for children is that it really is a religious teaching, a wrong religious teaching, because it teaches them that if they're nice, they get the gifts. If they're naughty, they don't. Or in my case, I was taught that he would leave us a bundle of switches. Isn't that interesting? It's a salvation by my own personal virtue. But there's a second thing wrong with it, and that is that they're going to get those gifts whether they're naughty or nice, because most parents love their children and wouldn't dream of, quote, ruining their Christmas. And they're not going to ruin Christmas. They're going to give those children the gifts anyway. And sooner or later, those thinking children are going to realize, I wasn't very nice, but I got the gift anyway. So it isn't important to be nice. It isn't important to do what is right and avoid what is wrong.
German immigrants coming to America during the 1620s tried to influence the New World with the stories of St. Nicholas and his gift-giving Ruprecht. But somehow the idea just didn't take hold until almost 200 years later.
In 1819, America's best-selling author, Washington Irving, used his influence to promote St. Nicholas in a popular Christmas story titled Brace Bridge Hall. Consulting Irving's writings, Episcopalian minister Clement Clark Moore penned a decidedly secular tale called A Visit from St. Nicholas in 1822. Later retitled The Night Before Christmas, Moore's poem was based on the tales of German and Dutch immigrants who had come to America. Intended originally only for his own children, Moore's story was published in the Troy Sentinel in New York and became an overnight sensation. Gone were the bishop's remnant of St. Nicholas. He was now a jolly old elf imbued with supernatural powers. Moore had also replaced Nicholas's companion, necked Ruprecht, with 8 horned magical reindeer. As the popularity of The Night Before Christmas grew, Moore became increasingly concerned that the story's emphasis on the supernatural and its disregard for Christ would reflect poorly on his position as a minister. As a result, he refused to take credit for its creation until the story became so popular that he could no longer resist. 40 years later, illustrator Thomas Nast, political cartoonist for Harper's Weekly, seared the image of Santa Claus into the minds of the world by creating a drawing which combined Moore's jolly old elf with images of St. Nicholas taken from his own native Bavaria. By 1880, Santa was a thoroughly secularized folk hero who had become increasingly irresistible to retailers worldwide.
One factor that has contributed to the paganization of Christmas has been the element of commercialism. It may seem odd to think of it in that context, but remember that Christ himself identified the love of money as a spiritual force in and of itself. And where it comes into play, it has a kind of naturally hostile effect on the gospel and the Christian faith. So the commercialization of Christmas has helped to highlight the pagan elements and to drive the overtly Christian elements further underground.
To me, the most obscene thing about Christmas celebrations and customs as we know them is that as a result of these things, Jesus is displaced in the hearts of children by Santa Claus. The love, affection, appreciation, trust, the desire to emulate these things that they should have in their hearts and minds as growing children for Jesus himself, to whom they owe everything. Instead, this has been stolen. This has been raped out of their hearts, in a sense, and displaced by the myth of Santa Claus.
He takes the place of God or of Jesus Christ in the special world that is Christmas. He has supernatural knowledge of your history. He has supernatural knowledge of your present, of your attitudes. He's keeping a list. He knows who's naughty and nice. Your parents don't even know that. He's obviously got some conduit to knowledge that is beyond the human, and he flies through the air capable of visiting every place on the globe in the course of a single night. In many, many ways, Santa exhibits supernatural qualities that provide a kind of a surrogate deity or a substitute for God or for Christ.
Myths, by definition, evolve and change, and things are added. We use this figure that was confused with St. Nicholas and confused with other pagan figures, and then somehow he evolved through the drawings of Thomas Nast and others into what we see today, but he had a sleigh with 8 supernatural reindeer that can fly. And so the Christmas traditions that are pagan continue to change. But the truth of Jesus, the truth of the Incarnation, the truth that the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, never changes, never will.
Scriptures in the Bible, including the 2nd chapter of Luke, record the events surrounding the birth of the Messiah. A decree from Caesar Augustus had gone out, requiring all people to return to the city of their origin for taxation purposes. Mary, who was pregnant with a child conceived, made the difficult journey to Bethlehem along with her husband Joseph. Both Joseph and Mary were of the lineage of King David. Upon arrival, they found all the inns to be full, but were provided with a stable where Mary could have her baby. At the same time, an angel announcing the birth of the Messiah appeared to shepherds tending their flocks in a field nearby. The stunned shepherds hurried to Bethlehem and found the baby Jesus lying in a manger just as the angel had declared. Although traditional nativity scenes placed 3 wise men at the stable at the time of Jesus Christ's birth, according to Scripture, these wise men visited Jesus later at his home. Because 3 gifts are named, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, tradition says 3 men gave them. But exactly how many wise men visited Jesus is not known. The birth of Jesus Christ miraculously fulfilled a number of Old Testament that he would be born of a virgin, and that he would be a descendant of King David's.
The concept or the idea of celebrating the birth of Jesus once a year had apparently never occurred to the Church Fathers. In the first 3 centuries of the Church's history, there was no such thing. And I think God perhaps very carefully avoided telling us in the Scriptures when he was born. We can be sure of one thing: it wasn't in late December, and because in the first place, shepherds don't abide by their flocks in the fields by night in late December. It's too cold. They take them out in the morning to pasture, protect them while they eat all day, and then bring them back in at night. So it wasn't in late December. It's an interesting thing, and perhaps an intellectually tantalizing thought, to try to figure out when he was born. And it can be done within limits, and if it mattered, and apparently it doesn't matter to God, he was probably born in late September.
Some scholars point out that according to Scripture, the birth of Ironically, this would have placed his conception right around December 25th. The timing of other events such as the temple service of Zacharias and the pregnancy of Mary's cousin Elizabeth lend credence to December 25th as being the date of Jesus' conception.
Since Christians believe that life begins at conception anyway, and not at birth as pro-abortionists believe, this may be a more appropriate reason to remember this time of the year as the period in which God came to earth in human form.
For some,
REFM, thought-provoking, always smoking, lyrics like a bazooka. You are listening to Mutabaruka. always smoking. Lyrics like a bazooka. You are listening to Mutabaruka.
Yes, that was a history of the different aspects of Christmas as we have been celebrating it for centuries. And African people get caught up in it at this moment in time much more than the people them who gave us it, to the point where now they have created businesses around it. And African people who is at the lowest end of economical strength and power spend what they have to maintain this white supremacist idea that has perpetuated itself for centuries. We don't allow our African spirituality to define us because we don't know of any African spirituality. And we don't even know that a lot of the things them that they adopt and turn it round and twist it round is just the branches of the root of our Africanness. It's like them dash back, them take with things and dash it back to in a different way. Use for them little blender and blend it and give it back. And when we start to drink it, it poison away. Because them put something in it that was deep. We need to return to our true historical reference points. And the only way we can do that is to gather information. Information is the most important thing that we can have right now to empower ourselves. Information. Because a lot of us are inspired, or so we say. But we are not inspired because we gather information and that information helps us to be inspired. The lack of information leads to superstition, and superstition is what drives a lot of our inspiration in this time. Because we cannot get in. We use superstition to arrive at a point that is called now inspiration. And most of it is expired. Because a lot of the thinking is not part of the human development. When we say the human evolution in thought. Human beings evolve in thought as the environment and the political and social conditions is manifest. But we African people get stuck in our them give way. And when they move from that, we're still stuck in it. We can't develop ourselves as a people, not as individuals, as a people. So we stay at the bottom of the ladder because we do have the information. We do have the information that will empower us. We do have the information that will say to us, look at the root. Look at your historical, because history is very important. History is very important, even though people don't put much emphasis on history. Again. But history is what defines us as a people in this time. And depending on how you see yourself in history, will directly relate to how you see yourself in the present. And if you don't have no reference point that is highly spiritual in goodness, highly spiritual in humanness, connect you to life and nature and things them that is a purpose, the air and the water. If we don't have that surrounding us in our spirit, we will always look on the branch and feel say that it is sum total of the tree. If we continue to look at the branch and believe that it is sum total of the tree, we will not bear any fruit, because the leaves cannot bear fruit without the root. And that is what we say right now. We continue in the same vein, doing the same thing, the same way, all the while hoping to get a different result. And grandmothers come, and great-grandmothers come, and mothers come, and fathers come, and great-grandfathers come, with the same thing, thinking the same thing, doing the same thing the same way, all the while, and expect to get a different result. And now the children is following in that uninformed lifestyle. They are not inspired to be spiritual, social, political, and cultural. Because the decadence of Western society has befallen us. The educational system that is called education is really indoctrination. Them indoctrinate we into a lifestyle and a thinking that is not conducive to our DNA, our memory bank, genetic memory bank. Our genetic memory bank has been robbed. Some thieves go in there and draw from it a lot of goodness that was there, and has caused us now to be perpetuators of the things that we now kill ourselves with the things them that is placed there to kill us. And no one have to tell we to kill ourselves. We do it voluntarily. We do it voluntarily now. We don't have to have no whip over our back by a white man. But the slave now has the whip to not only whip other slaves, but to whip himself and call it penance. So it's deeply embedded in the religion that has perpetuated devastation on his family and his people and his ancestors for hundreds of years. And him continue with it because him don't seek information. Inspiration without information lead to superstition. And most of us is hell-bent and holding on to superstitious ideas. Because make no bones about it, Europeans were very superstitious in the times what they call medieval times, in the times when in Europe. That is why that is why King James, the same King James version that you have the Bible in, King James slaughter some women because he felt that they were witches. They were causing him and him lady traveling in a ship. The story goes, not written by black people, it's European history we are talking about. When he was traveling in a ship, the waves rocked the boat and create devastation. And he gave that over to some witches. So he decided that he would burn some witches for the cause of the boat and him and him lady, whosoever was on the boat with him, to be in such peril. And we continue these superstitious nature, superstitious idea without scientifically examining it, because to deal with something scientifically you have to have information. But some of us refer not to see science as the next thing. We define science in relationship to superstitious ideas and superstitious thought. We define science now as something that is not tangible, when science is supposed to be tangible. Science comes to conclusion through rigorous expositions and rigorous conditioning and rigorous what we call digging. We African people, them already return to our ancestral legacy. And the only way we can know what our ancestors thought and think, the only way we can know that is to search for and seek information. And when you have that information, you will be inspired to do great things to benefit the interests of the African race. Because we are a descendant from the African race. Whether you want to accept it or not, the majority of Jamaican people are of the African race. We are descendant from the African race. Today we meet the great grandmother of Haile Selassie, Yeshima Bet. As a matter of fact, she have the name of our great grandmother, Yeshima Bet Ali, who was the wife of Haile Selassie. And on Friday, we will be spinning music at a party, I don't know what them call it, that is there to celebrate our visit to Jamaica. We want to play this tune for her.
Holidays on Constant Spring Road.
Yeah, this is the cutting edge. As I said, we're playing a tune, Ethiopian vibes, new tune them, for Yeshima Bet, who's visiting Jamaica at the moment, the great granddaughter of Emperor Selassie I, who we will be seeing again Friday. Yes. By the way, I got through some Psalms the other day, catch up on my information, revive. Anybody, I don't know, anybody out there ever read the whole of Psalms 137 yet? I think Psalm 130. Psalm 137 said, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and we met. Yeah, I think it's Psalm 137. Anybody out there ever read the whole of it and read it to verse 9? I mean, I was refreshing my brains and verse 9. I really implore, go back and read the Psalms there. By the rivers of Babylon where we sat down. Because it has been done, it's one of the most popular Psalms in the Bible. It has been done, and as a matter of fact, John Holt popularized it to the point where Boney M sing it over. But the last part of it, I don't remember nobody ever really repeat the last part of the thing, especially the verse 9. I don't know if you have no time, but you can go back and look on it and read verse 9 of Psalm 137, we say, by rivers of Babylon. We continue. We are going to go with this tune here from Ethiopia again. Yes. Music out of Ethiopia. This is the Coordinate and RFM. Yes, here.
Yeah,
blessed.
Yeah, man. Just having money here that about the homosexual thing.
Do what?
Double match, the same master match,
Scriptural. Yeah.
Bring a couple of it.
Yeah.
When I go to school, still remember one time we had a debate for homosexual reserve in Jamaica. I'm reading some book, and I remember the name of the book now, so like, in some tribe of Africa. So I say I always have a Caribbean when I study history at school, and I'm saying a Caribbean when I study root them got on change to turn warrior. Then I always say also I'm saying them study youth them will live with them the bigger man them and them basically turn them into homosexual. And when they reach a certain age, them can them have the right to like choose women and stuff like that. So, as I remember the name of the book still, and when therefore my set up certain thing, I know certain thing, right? I need to go check the back on 6 still, but I was in there at 6 time, that's about 2002 or 2003.
I love to see the book still.
As I remember, there's a possibility that I can't find out. I read the work of school, I said, I find out. Remember, indeed.
Yeah, all right. When you find a book, bring it back.
Boss.
Yeah. You have women, married women, and don't deal have sex in Africa. In what we call primitive tribes in Africa. That is something we know. So you have women who married to women. But the sex part, I don't come in it. But the point I was making, I know that I get some people going around. The point that I was making was that here is a book that is supposed to be the answer that tell you that certain things. If a child disobey them parents, they should be put to death. Yes, it's in there. If a child disobey his parents, they should be put to death. And it also says if a man lie with the next man, him shall be put to death. This guy make the thing outlawed. And to death, anybody who can't do this thing is put to death. But now, them switch it round by way. And expect no we to follow it. Which is really problematic. And that is the way of the colonizer. The colonizer move and the slave stay same way. But there's something that the colonizer with. Because in our DNA, in our real DNA, in our genetic memory, him don't remember that thing in our past. So him don't want to move with the colonizer in that aspect of the thing. So it become a complication. It become another traumatic experience for him. Because how is this man going to tell us that this thing is not supposed to happen? And then now him tell us say nothing wrong with it. Who's confusing who? Who's confusing who? You know, you have little black boys walking around, get caught in it. And most of them cannot claim that they born that way. But most of them is through association. at least in Jamaica, is association. That's like how you have man a move with gunman and him get a gun for himself. You know, show me a company, I tell you who you are. So them things that go sometime, because sometimes you have a company and he's not who like the company still. But we have to recognize how important it is to return to our roots. And when I use roots, that's not cliche. We use roots as a metaphorical language for our original way. Culture is the highest. When we talk about discipline, we talk about disciplines like sociology, anthropology, religion, economics, politics, all of them things there. To understand all of them things, you have to understand culture. Because all of them work in the framework of culture. Culture is not just dancing and singing, as they want to put it. Culture is the highest form of discipline. So if you don't understand yourself inside of culture, especially when it has to do with your DNA and your genetic memory, your heritage, who you are, will become like a zombie in the scheme of things. And we have to return to our culture. We're not talking about the culture we learn when we come here. Because of slavery, we develop certain things for maintain and sustain the colonial master house. And that kind of culture that we are talking about. We are talking about the culture that is embedded in our genetic memory, our heritage. Because heritage have to connect to land. Define heritage, and heritage is not disconnected from land. So we have to remember. Yes, continent.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah, man, you're up on the radio.
Oh, yes, Muta.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I have been trying to get you for a long time. I'm a professor here in Pennsylvania, USA, and I wanted to, hear talking about culture tonight, and I wanted to bring to your attention a book that I actually wrote. It's called The History of the System of Music.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks at emancipation from 1830 to the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
I did this research because I didn't see a lot of material out there that talks about how music has been learned in Jamaica, how music has been taught, from a formal perspective. And the material that I found that was written before pretty much covered, what was the schools, what was taught in schools and the formal system of music education, but it never really covered like Alpha Boy School, and a lot of the other less formal ways of music education.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wanted to bring it to your attention because
what the name of the book? Remind me the name of the book. What's the name of the book is?
The System of Music Education in Jamaica.
What is your name?
And then,
what is your name?
I'm Randy. Yes, I'm Randy Tillman.
Okay.
Randy Tillman. Yes. And I was saying it kind of looked at from the beginning, in the opening portion of the book, it kind of compared music education in England, in South Africa, in Australia, in Ghana, Nigeria, because those are countries that have similar systems of education to Jamaica.
Yeah.
So we kind of looked at very briefly what music education in those countries were like, and how it developed, and compared that with how it developed in Jamaica as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of broke down, teacher education, secondary education, the fact that, there is a curriculum for music in the school. around 1994 with the Rose curriculum, which was a relatively new curriculum. That curriculum came into being when I was actually in school, when I was a high school student.
Yeah.
So music, even though it was taught formally in the schools before 1994, there wasn't really a curriculum, there. And so since 1994, there was a formal curriculum by the Ministry of Education. And then even now, there is some revamping going on as to the curriculum in the schools, because from my research, I've seen that there is sometimes, I guess people would have to weigh on this, other musicians or music educators who are still teaching in Jamaica. But to me, there's no, sometimes it seems like there's a lack of continuity to high school to college level music, so that students are adequately prepared to enter a college level institution to study music. Jamaica has a lot of talented musicians. So I kind of wanted to look at the history and look at what was the original system to see, if by looking at it, what we can, look at from a bird's eye view to, chart the way forward.
All right. What I suggest to you, I feel like a good person to relate what you talk about with is a person named Ibo Cooper. I don't know if you hear about Ibo Cooper. He was one of the founders of Third World. He teaches at the music school. And what he is doing now is transforming music school that is bringing out a lot of young, vibrant musicians. And even though he got one of those European education when it comes to music, he can play classical music, but him use him Afrocentricity and transform the music part of the music school very, very, very seriously. So I think you should have tried getting contact and have a serious reason with him. Plus, I really love the book, and I love the book,
Yeah, it's been full online, I mean, I've tried to.
No, me like the hard copy. Me like the hard copy.
Oh, you like that? Yeah, we could have definitely sent one, man. That's not a problem at all. I would love to do that.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
Ibo Cooper is a former professor of mine, so I know him.
You know him. All right. Good. Yeah. You know him was one of the Third World man there. He used to play keyboard.
Yeah.
So it's a good brethren to deal with, because he say he has been doing wonderful works in the music school, where if I bring out some of the great musicians them now. We are get tour now with artists, even elder artists.
Yeah, man. When they start full time at Edna Monday, I was there myself. So.
Okay. I know. Where you teach? Where you teach?
Yes, go ahead.
Where you teach?
Right now I teach just a few music courses. Like I conduct a choir here.
Okay.
I teach introduction to music. I teach music theory, and I look at the music industry. But the course on the music industry that I teach currently now is music industry in America.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Well, yeah. I just want to have the opportunity.
Man, we give thanks to your call. I listen.
Yeah.
All right. Blessed. Yeah, we give thanks to them call there. Them tune in from all over the world. But getting back to this culture argument, where we are showing you how culture is the nucleus of all of the so-called discipline them where you can study. And if you don't understand culture, you can't understand the people. Because culture sometimes is defined as the way of the people. And the way of the people is set up in such a way that if you're going to study people in their environment, which is called anthropology, you have to know the culture. Because the culture, anthropology is going to lead you straight back to culture. Religion is designed to what we call now, to bring you toward a certain spiritual understanding in our earth. And to understand religion and religious beliefs, you have to go inside of the people's culture, because it's really the culture. Religion come out of culture. You know, Judaism is not, I say Judaism, but it wasn't a religion, it was a way of the people. It's how the people them live, but the people them was living and trying to connect themselves with their environment. Just like in Africa, where the people them develop what we call a lot of different disciplines, different religious disciplines, like animism, you have pantheism, you know, you have polytheism. I mean, really, you have the animism. You can see that what we call the Akan traditions, where everything have life, even inanimate objects like stone. Well, stone have life because it grow, but you know, people don't look at it that way there. But it is animist. You recognize it that way there. The pantheist is like most Rasta and myself, even though people don't understand. Pantheism show you the connection that everything is God. Nature is God. So you can't separate nature from life. You know, so you see within nature, you see that God, that people search for. They have theism, where the Christian them say and apart from. You understand? So it's one of them things, but all of them things that come from culture. All of them understanding the way we are talking about come from culture. We don't want to go above the people them mind, but we just say that because we want you to really search. You understand? And the idea of culture get misplaced somewhere between a dance and music. So anytime that Jamaica people say cultural music, them don't understand, say, even the dancehall music is a cultural music because it developed from the people and it's the way of the people. When we say, in our language, when we say cultural music, we are talking about music that is political or religious or spiritual, not music, cultural music. But in our definition of culture, we see culture as music where it's political, militant music that is skewed in politics. But whether the music has skewed politics or not, if it comes from the action and the way of the people, it's culture. It's cultural. You understand? So when you hear a man, dancehall artists, who come from the masses of the people, them, who create moves and who create lyrics that is in context of him surrounding and the environment, that is cultural. People don't want to accept it that way, but it's true. That's a reality. We prefer to define culture as radical, politically motivated music. And then we have the aspect now of not seeing politics. If the politicians understand the culture of the people, then they're going to be best able to create and design a system that is more nearer to the thinking and the movement of the people. But them adopt a political ideology from the colonial master. And the colonial master create an ideology, a political ideology for himself in a theme culture. And what we do is draw from the slave master cultural experience politically and carry it over to a population that is 90% African. It cannot work. It can't work. We have to formulate and farm this up of our heritage and our history. We have to develop political ideas in the framework of the majority of the Jamaican people, which is African people. And if we continue to use the ideas of our colonial masters to govern the slaves them going to rebel and the master going to enforce more things upon the slave them, that the slave them will be subjugated to the slave master. Powerful people will never educate powerless people in what it means to take the power away from them. Because the aim of powerful people is to stay powerful by any means necessary. And that is what we say are going right now with black people in Jamaica, that the power is not from the Prime Minister or the Jamaica, but it was handed down for these bossy slaves to maintain and continue the white supremacist mentality over the people. So the European master don't have to stay in Jamaica to shoot down runaway slaves or to maintain peace with their militias. All them have to do is embed them cultural practices, both politically, economically, and religiously, inside of the mind of some slave. And then the slave now will carry out the work of the slave master, even if the slave master is not there. Then you say, that's one. You know, so say the slave master put in at the slave them the political, social, economical, religion inside of the slave them. And the slave them who have that in them head separate themselves from the masses of the people and decide say them are going to lead the people. So them not correct nothing. Them are continue the same slavery mentality that the slave master Ghana, England. The slave master Ghana, England. But we still maintain the Westminster system. We still have the Queen. We still celebrate Boxing Day. Hey, I tell you. No, Rasta. There's not be so blind that if that cannot see, but I tell you. But you know what I'm saying? The Baba saying, you know, what I'm saying, say, in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man. And there's a story about the Pied Piper. And this story is a very serious English story. I must, if I recall very much, is a story that was taught to men, children in school. That some people in a town had some problem with rats. And rat was taking over them village. And there was this little man, this musician, who when he played, the rats, them follow him. So them wanted to get rid of the rats. Call the Pied Piper and say, look here, we have a rat problem. We want to get rid of the rat them. And the Pied Piper say, okay, you're going to pay me that amount to get rid of the rat them. And them agree on a sum of money. And the Pied Piper play. And the rats them hear the tune. And the rat them start to follow the Pied Piper. And the Pied Piper lead them to water, river. And them cross the river and still play the tune. And the rat them follow him in the river. And all of the rat them drown. So when he went back to the town, and him look upon the governor general, and him look upon the prime minister and the house, and him say, look here, I get you down, no rat. Pay me now. Them say, we don't have no money to pay, you know. We have the austerity here with the IMF. And even though we ill-treat you in Coral Garden, so you get rid of a lot of the criminality. We don't have the money to pay you. And the Pied Piper say, okay. And the Pied Piper play a different song, a different tune. And all the children of the city followed the Pied Piper music and was led out of the city. And the people of the city saw their children no more because the Pied Piper played that song and took them out of the city, away from them family. A very serious story. Now connect it to what we are talking about. We now explain it why you use your wizzy and figure out why we tell that story. The Pied Piper. Very, very serious story.
First time caller. I call him, I come down from Canada. I call him. One time he did come up to Montreal.
Yeah.
He did come up there for one festival.
Ah, the way we come up there. Yeah, we come up there for a festival too, yeah, man.
Yeah, I want to take 2 times to you want to big up yourself, dog. Your philosophy you're teaching them, I run the place up, so you know what I'm saying?
So where you there now? Where you there now?
Right now, we're down here still. We're down here for a week, 2 weeks, a cool.
Okay, so when you say to run the place up, so what you mean now? Everybody are listening.
Yo, everybody are listening. Stepping razor, cutting edge, locking, tough, heavy. Want to take 2 times, big up the 2 brother them, DJ and big up OP, them are listening. You know, so them are locking, tough.
All right.
But I want to give you 2 jokes quick about the boss slave them. I go around one hotel, I'm not calling no name, because I know say no one hear no name. I go one hotel in a Negro, I go for check-in. And I tell the man, say, yo, here what, I want house up, so but I want white woman more come to check, I want check in, and you know, I say, I want local rate. The man in front, that's why look at me like say that, discuss him and them thing there. I say, oh, rude boy, you don't own this place there. You know, I say that, you should just check in the man them and go about your business. And I say, the man I go on like say, him run the business and them thing them. I say, look for you. Because boss is slave, dog. The man put your stuff to run the place and you just have to.
So what you want him, where did you want him do? Where did you want him?
The man give me one little local rate. Because the rate them gone up.
Who did that check in?
I mean, me and my 2 cousins them did that check in. You know what I say? But my cousin them just dead there with me. You know what I say? Me and pay.
Them are Jamaican. Them are Jamaican.
Eh?
The 2 cousins them are Jamaican.
Yeah, man. Them are Jamaican. Them need that so I just bring them down and they check in.
No, wait. Now you're going to the hotel to check in and them want the foreign rate.
And they want to give me the foreign rate.
So let me ask you a question now. You didn't investigate if them have a local rate?
No, but them man they go for check in and them give them
No, man, may I ask if you did investigate if them have a local rate?
Yeah, man, because this one, because the 2 man they go for check in first and me come down for pay. And when them see me come down for pay, them say, him a foreigner. Him can't pay them little local rate what we are talking about. Him have to pay the regular.
Okay, so we reach a stage I know where some music we're gonna work with, some music, but we give thanks to the bridge and so with my people and stuff, so with my people and listen and we hope say inspire ones to search, seek. Because that is the intention. The intention is to make your search and find things for yourself. You don't have to take what we are saying now. If you want, take some of it and dash with the other rest, I don't know nothing. You know, we don't expect you to gulp long everything, what we say. You know what I'm saying? You need to go investigate for yourself and realize, even some of the time why we play them tape, you know, is because sometimes when we are saying things, is the Chamuta can talk foolishness, but it's when I hear white people after the sea. It's a weird thing, you know. When certain people hear people of a different ilk saying the same thing, they more concede to it. So these little tape is very good sometimes to play, that people can recognize other people are say too. Because when I say nothing, when nobody else now say nothing new. When I say nothing new under the sun, which is a cliche talk, but it's true. When you hear man talk about him about destroy the earth, a foolishness, man can't destroy the earth. Plastic bottle now destroy the earth. Plastic bottle make it miserable for human beings live on the earth. So he have to protect himself by not exposing himself to plastic bottle in the earth. So it's not like the earth don't know how to vomit up plastic and don't know how to destroy certain things. It's that man don't know how to keep himself alive on the planet. And sometimes he create different things that is of no importance or significance to him. Like how man I said the devil do this. That's why you have so much problems arrive, because man always create problem to himself. The only place that good and evil exists is in the heart of men, or human beings I should say. The only place that good and bad exists is in the heart of men. A man created, and him have to know how to deal with it. And if him can't get rid of the devil, him never get rid of evil. Because the devil is a construct of his own mind. Just like when he create Christmas. He create Christmas to satisfy a certain level of thinking in a cultural space. And then him add upon it. So you have Xmas now, and now, you see them ease it out now. Them say, happy holiday. Have a wonderful holiday. Most people to be politically correct. It is not politically correct to say happy Christmas again. Because even the 70 of them, they don't know that. It is not politically correct to say happy Christmas again. It is politically correct at this moment in time to say happy holiday. Because this time of the year is one of the biggest holidays. You spend the most money. So people prefer to say no, happy holiday, because now you don't have to label any group of people into the holiday. Because you know everybody going to celebrate holiday, whether him is 70 Jehovah's Witness, some Rasta now all put up Christmas tree. Hey, no, I tell you that. Me decide say go a Rataman yard and see a Christmas tree yard. Me nah go in there, you know. Me decide that, you know. If me go a Rataman yard and see a Christmas tree yard, me nah go in there. That's all. Because me don't know how we reach that so. And one of the most backward things we can see right now, a Rataman do. Like how me see Rataman that smoke cigarette. Terrible. Firelinks. Firelink. Anybody who knows about firelinks down here, tell them Mutabaruka. Mind me come look for him in a Rasta. You understand? Tell him some mind me come look for him. Me a shout out to firelinks. So firelinks, Muta yell you up. Alright? Alright. musical journey we are working at the last part of the program also. You know, so we will be back here a little more from this at 2 to 5:45 with the Stepping Razor, the art of war. Why listen out tomorrow. Yes, very, very important that you listen tomorrow. Okay, so we move from Africa to Cuban vibes. We're going to give you a whole song, Peanut Vendor. Peanut Vendor. Tune. Different versions. We're going to play that version there. Blessed man.
Blessed, my brethren. Tell me something. I want you to check out our brethren on the net.
Michael Tellinger.
Yeah.
Well, spell the last name.
Tellinger, man. Tellinger.
Okay. Where am I work with?
Him deal with some scientific research. He live down in South Africa there. See? And the man have the Ubuntu party. And the principle of Ubuntu is a level of consciousness towards a development. But that brother is a scientist who deal with some sound principle.
Okay.
See, I'm going to show some record down in South Africa where him live. Him live near to the Adam's calendar. See, and the brethren, even there's a footprint of a giant footprint in a rock embedded near to him live.
Okay. See? Michael
Tellinger.
Okay.
See?
Yeah, man.
I know some more time you go down to the South Africa.
Yeah, man, definitely.
See?
Michael
so if you get a chance...
I know a man just called me from South Africa. Just a while ago, a man called me from South Africa.
See?
Yeah, man. All right, remember, Michael
I want you to do that. I want you to check it out first on the net, Anunnaki, Asian technology.
All right.
See?
Yeah, man.
Because a little later on, I want you to check out that thing on the other show. See?
All right, blessed.
Blessed.
Yo. How we are going now? What? Wrong, yeah, so. Music I play and nothing now come over. I could try again, yeah. Something wrong. Yeah, the body there, spirit I play with the computer. I don't understand what was going on, so. I could try it over the phone. I have to go figure out something. All right. Okay. All right, I'm going to start over the shoulder. I'm going to start over the shoulder. I don't understand where I'm going at, but it better play, you know. Yeah, we're done with it for the night. Okay.
When you say.
Why are there too much? Program. And as I said before, we are Stepping Razor, Yellow Brian and yeah, as well, so we want Yellow Brian, I want Yellow not only a telephone operator, but also helping with the program here too. Hard worker. I don't know. She must say I get 3 times the amount of pay everybody I get because the amount of work comes to that after they do. Why electricity? Yes. Enough work. And I feel that tomorrow she'll go there again for Ellie's Kelly program to Soul to Soul. You love Tracy. Thank you. All right, so you already know we are going to this song now. Well, it's not really a song, but you know why the people them do? Who have an internet, go on YouTube and put in Water Drum 1 by the Baka Forest people, or some people in the Cameroon, and you go and go see how the woman them play this tune here. It's the most amazing thing. Just put in Water Drums 1 by Baka, B-A-K-A, Baka people, or Baka Forest people. Just put that in. I mean, it's most amazing how them use the water to play this music here we're going to play now. So here goes, behind me. I don't know where I'm still on behind me, but instead I'm still on beside me. I got it all. Listen.